Hello from Lindau. Welcome to our Lindau Alumni webinar, the Mentor and Protégé Partnership, How to Leverage this Critical Alliance. My name is Christoph Schumacher. If you don't know me, I'm the Alumni and Community Manager with the Lindau Nobel Laureate Meetings. In just a minute, Alaina Levine will introduce you to ways to create and most importantly, maintain a mentorship relationship in a way that is beneficial to all involved. Throughout the webinar, if you're on social media, you're welcome to live tweet the webinar. Our handles are @Lindau Nobel, and Alaina on Twitter is Alaina G. Levine. And also throughout the webinar, you're welcome to ask questions. There should be a question box on your GoToWebinar console. We'll be checking in on those questions throughout the webinar. But first, before we begin, I have some information from Lindau. As since not all of the attendees today are alumni, some general information first. The upcoming meeting this year is the 69th Lindau Nobel Laureate Meeting. It's dedicated to physics. It will be from the 29th of June to July 5th. And even if you can't be present in Lindau, you can follow all the lectures, the Gora talks, and much more Mediathek at mediathek.lindau-nobel.org, and you can also follow the hashtag Lino19 on social media, and there you will get a lot of information and most of the content from the meeting week. And also, just a little note, in 2020 we'll have two meetings. The first is the 70th Lindau Nobel Laureate meeting. It will be an interdisciplinary meeting, and if you know people who might fit the interdisciplinary criteria and who might be interested in attending the meeting, the nomination and application period will start in fall, probably in September 2019. And you will get more information on our website, and also if you subscribe to our newsletter, and also on social media. So keep an eye out for that. And there will also be an economics meeting next summer. So also keep an eye out for that if you're an economist. And now a little bit of information about the Lindau Alumni Network. A lot of you probably already know this digital space for the Lindau Spirit. It's really a good space to reconnect, share your own work, and also engage with other alumni, swap stories, and most importantly, find out about Lindau alumni events first. We have two really interesting events coming up this year, a bit later in the year. First off, there's a alumni organized retreat in September 2019. Already took place once last year. It's a great initiative organized by alumni from last year's meeting, and it's dedicated basically to the life sciences, and it'll take place in Frankfurt this fall. You'll also get more information on that in the Lindau Alumni Network. And we're also planning an event in Berlin in November 2019. You will also hear about the exact details on that first in the Lindau Alumni Network. And also, if you're in India, I believe there's the 5th edition of the Indo-German Convention of Lindau Alumni, also a great alumni organized initiative. And you can find out more about that on social media and also in the Lindau Alumni Network in the coming weeks. So without much further ado, I will now hand over to our presenter today. This is the 4th webinar we're doing with Alaina. She's the president of Quantum Success Solutions, is an author. She wrote the great book, Networking for Nerds, published in 2015. She's also a career consultant and a blogger, science journalist, and has participated in the last few Lindau meetings, both as a blogger and as a moderator of panels. You may have met her when you were in Lindau in the last couple of years. And now I hand over to you, Alaina, and I'm looking forward to learning more about a productive mentor-mentee relationship.
Thank you so much, Christoph, and welcome nerds around the world. I am so excited to be here with you to talk to you about how we together can craft more mutually beneficial and really satisfying mentor-protégé partnerships. This is going to be one of the most important partnerships that you have across the space and time of your careers, even as you have multiple careers, it will be valuable. It'll be truly invaluable to you. And we want to make sure that as you build these relationships, as you nurture and cultivate these relationships, and as the relationships change, as all relationships do, except my relationship with cupcakes, that will never change. That is absolutely a static relationship. We want to make sure that as those relationships change, as you change, that you can actually still maintain a really good alliance with this person, and that they know how to help you, and that you are helping them, and that together you are building something special. So what we're going to be talking about today is how to actually think about the mentor and protege, or mentor-mentee relationship, and what defines a mentoring relationship, and how to actually nurture this alliance, how to build it, craft it, cultivate it, and keep growing it. And then we also want to talk about how to communicate within this relationship. I mean, obviously, we want to make sure that everybody's on the same page in that partnership. We want to make sure that everybody is really understanding what the needs are of the individuals in that partnership, and that we are truly articulating what value we are providing and what value we are interested in gaining from that relationship. And so we have to be able to use and to identify the right communication techniques and channels so that we can keep that relationship moving forward. We don't want to get stymied by not knowing that, for example, your mentor likes to use text or WhatsApp, and you are more interested in using email or other traditional methods. So we want to know what is the appropriate and what are the right communication techniques, channels, and opportunities so that everybody is clear on what we're doing. You know, one of the reasons I was really excited today about giving this webinar to the Lindau community, and whether you've experienced Lindau before or not, I want you to go onto the website, lindaunobel.com, and learn more about it, because it's really quite an interesting organization. And the conference, I've been to, I think, about 4 conferences, and I will be at the 2019 meeting in physics. Very excited about that. Lindau actually is a very interesting environment in that, you know, here's this wonderful conference, 800 young scientists from 84 countries, 30, 40 Nobels, depending on the subject, depending on the year, coming to Lindau, coming to the community of Lindau. It's a wonderful place for you as a young scientist, for you as an early career professional, to meet potential mentors, of course, both formal and informal, people who could be formal or informal mentors to you. It's a wonderful place for you to meet protégés, and the people that you're meeting, depending on where you are in your career and where your career takes you and where their career takes you, you may end up mentoring some of the people that you meet there. And you also have the opportunity to commiserate and talk to other people who are in similar career paths and at similar points in their career paths, to learn about what their issues and challenges have been, and also what their opportunities have been in crafting that mentor-protege relationship across their careers and across their lives. So it's something that I really encourage you to take advantage of. Lindau provides a wonderful channel for that, a wonderful garden to actually grow those types of relationships, and other conferences allow that as well too. So it's something that you can actually pursue while you're at conferences. So let me talk to you first about, when I say the word mentor, what I'm talking about. And by the way, as Christoph mentioned, we do have that question console as part of the webinar dashboard. So if you do have any questions, we're going to be answering them. We're going to be answering them throughout the webinar and also at the end. And this webinar has been recorded, as Christoph mentioned, and will be on the Lindau Nobel website. So who are your mentors? So when I use the word mentor, I use it in a couple of different ways. And so there are formal mentors that you might have, right? For example, your principal investigator, your research advisor. Maybe it's an advisor, an actual advisor that was assigned to you with the term, quote unquote, advisor at university. That's how I first met my first mentor. He was a math professor at the University of Arizona, where I was getting my mathematics degree, and he was the undergraduate advisor for the type of mathematics that I was interested in. And so he became my advisor, and he then became my mentor, my formal mentor, quote unquote. So there are people that actually have the role, and I'll call it the job, the actual job of being a formal mentor to you. And you might actually find them not just from research experiences, but from other types of experiences that you have. You might have a mentor who is advising your organization or your club, or it might be somebody who is assigned to you through a formal mentorship program through your organization, which could be through your university. It could be through another type of organization, such as a research institute, such as a government agency, or even a company that you're working for. A lot of companies have formal mentorship programs, especially for new employees, particularly for early career employees. But there are also lots and lots of informal mentors. So, you know, now in my life at this point, now that I'm super, super old, and I'm about 45 years old, so just to give you an idea, at this point in my life, I've had many, many mentors, but I would have to say that the majority of the ones who I've really been able to grow with and grow the relationship with, and the people who have provided me the greatest value and who I've created and provided value for as well, because spoiler alert, mentor-protégé relationships are actually mutually beneficial. I'll talk to you more about that soon. I have found that the majority of the mentors that have been very, very special to me and meaningful to me are actually people who are more on the informal side. So they were never formally assigned to me. They were never my PI. They were never my research advisor, but they were people that I encountered in the course of my doing business, in the course of me being interested in STEM, in the course of me doing what I did to build my career, who I found would be a good addition to my board of directors, to my personal board of directors, to my team, to help me achieve my goals. I will talk to you more about that as we're going through this webinar today, but I just wanted to give you that idea about the concept that a mentor does not have to be somebody who is formally provided to you or assigned to you or is giving you a tangible action or a tangible product in return. For example, a letter of recommendation, access to a class, or even signing off on your dissertation. They are mentors too, but they don't. But not all mentors are those types of mentors. Many of them are informal. So your mentors, why are they here? Why are they even helping you? Why are they even interested in you, right? Well, so mentors want to help stars. They keep an eye out. They are attracted to people who want to improve themselves and improve their teams, people who want to make a difference, people who want to improve their skills, who want to learn new information about the universe. This is the type of personality, this is the type of person, this is the type of professional that a mentor is looking to help. And so they are actually attracted to winners. And make no mistake, you are a winner no matter where you are in your career. In fact, the fact that you attended this webinar today shows me that you're a star. It shows me that you're a winner because you're taking time out of your schedule, time you will never get back, right? Because you don't have a time machine. I don't have one, at least maybe you do. And maybe you'll become my mentor so you can provide me that time machine. But just for the sake of argument, you don't have a time machine. So this is time you will never get back. And you're here to learn how you can build these stronger relationships, how you can make a difference in your life and ultimately in the life of your mentor and perhaps even of your protégés and the other mentors that you have. That shows me that what type of a professional you are. It shows me that you are a star, and I am attracted to that. That is the kind of person that I want to help. I want to help somebody who has already demonstrated that they want to help themselves, that they want to elevate themselves. So what mentors do, potential mentors do, these, and they're stars themselves, right? They're leaders, they're Nobel laureates, they're VIPs, they're the Dr. Gods of the community. And if you haven't heard me use that phrase, I use it as a loving and slightly humorous gesture just to refer to the people who are in the center of the orbits of a field, right? So the very important people, the CEOs, the vice presidents of organizations, the Nobel laureates, the Dr. Gods. And so what Dr. Gods do is they notice you because of your attributes and because of your talent and your skills and your ambition to be better, and they want to help you advance. They want to help you fulfill your goals and your dreams, and they want to help you avoid mistakes along the way. This is very, very important too. In fact, that's a really key thing that mentors do, is they can help you identify errors that you could potentially navigate away from. They could help you overcome a mistake that you might make, so that it's not as bad as it could be. They give you advice relating to dealing with mistakes and even failures and other types of challenges. So what our goal is, as potential protégés, is to seek out those who can and want to help you. And they may come in any form at any time. It's very interesting. Some of the mentors that I have and have had in the past are people who I just seemingly randomly interacted with. Our paths crossed, and they saw that this was something that would be useful for them to partner with me in a mentor-protégé relationship. Let me tell you a story. This is a very interesting story about me connecting with a mentor, somebody who ended up being a mentor for me for many, many years, and with whom I'm still in contact, and is not in science. So here's somebody, this person is not in science or engineering. He does not work, at the time I was working for the University of Arizona, he did not work for the academic community. And what happened was, I was giving a speech in Tucson, Arizona, USA, about a program that I was overseeing at the university, about a master's program that combines science and business. And as I completed my speech, this gentleman, he was sitting in the audience, he actually ran up and handed me his card very, very quickly. And he said, "That was so interesting. I really want to learn more about this. Call me." So I called him, we met for coffee, then we met for lunch, and we started getting together every now and then. And, I would keep him informed of what I was doing. He became my mentor. I never said, "Will you be my mentor?" I never said, "You are my mentor." He never said, "Can I be your mentor?" He just organically became my mentor. He saw something in me that he wanted to help improve and want to advise, and he saw that I would be able to provide value to him, and so we developed this mentor-protégé relationship. Now, what was his job? As I said, he wasn't in academia and science. He worked in mergers and acquisitions in the real estate industry. And I got to be honest with you, I really do not want to ever work in mergers and acquisitions in the real estate industry. But that doesn't matter. With a mentor-protégé relationship, you can have a mentor and you can have a protégé that are not in the same field, that are not in the same industry, and even not in the same geography. So he was very helpful to me, and it turned out, as our relationship continued to grow, it turned out that he wanted to help me, as was the case with mentor-protégé relationships, and I would then call him and email him anytime I had a challenge that I couldn't solve. And one day I did have a challenge. I was going to be interviewed on the radio to promote the program that I was overseeing at the University of Arizona. And I had never been on the radio before except to scream, "Yay, I won the rock and roll tickets." Like, that was my extent of my radio experience. So I needed some advice. Knowing that he was an accomplished professional, knowing that he had experience in promoting himself and doing public relations and media relations, I reached out to him and asked his advice. And he was very happy to give me that information. He helped me plan my strategy of how to do that radio interview. And then when the interview came up, of course, I told him when I was going to be on the air, and then I sent him a thank you note. And here's an example of somebody who was not in my field or industry, and not in the industry of what I was asking his advice about, but yet I knew he'd be able to help me, and he did. And again, he was invested in helping me because he saw that he would be able to help me achieve my goals, help me to achieve my dreams, and that in the end, he would get value out of that too. He saw something in me, he wanted to help, and he wanted to be a part of that party. So that is something that I want you to be thinking about, that mentors really look around and they become excited when they see somebody who is bright and shiny and smart and ambitious. And it doesn't matter if you are early in your career. It doesn't matter if you're a freshman. It doesn't matter if you've changed careers. Maybe you've made a pivot and you're in some other field starting over. Mentors can help you. They want to help you. They want to help the early career professionals, the people who are starting out. So what do they actually do? Let's talk about it. So they certainly guide us, right? They give us advice, and they help us to navigate the intricacies of the field that we're in and of the industry that we're in, so that we can better understand how it works. They even give us information about the culture and about language that's used and other things relating to that, which I'll talk more about. They act as our personal publicists, so they actually will be able to talk about us to their friends. And, you know, a colleague of mine, Howard G. Adams, he's an expert in mentoring and protege relationships. And he says, and I love this quote, that mentors have access to the rooms that the proteges do not have access to. And this is a very important thing to be thinking about, because when you think about this, you know, let's say I'm your mentor, right? I have access to the, you know, I attend a party with my friends, with my colleagues, with the people who I'm working with, and I might have access to the party where Bill Gates is, where Elon Musk is, where Dr. God is located. You might not, because you're so early in your career and you haven't built your network up yet. But because you're my protege, when Elon Musk says to me, you know, Alaina, I really need somebody who knows physics and biophysics and has an expertise in materials. Do you know anybody? And I've already known you. You've become my protege, so I've gotten a sense of what you do and what your interests are and what your skills are. I can then tell Elon, oh yeah, you should talk to my protege. This person would be amazing on your team at Tesla. And so now I've given you, as the mentor, I have given you access to that person, to Elon Musk. So it's really interesting about that concept, and that access is very important. So as your mentor, I'm going to publicize you. I want to know about what you're working on and what achievements you've had, so I can publicize you to my colleagues, to the people that are in my network. And related to that, I'm serving as a bridge. I'm serving as a bridge to people. I'm serving as a bridge for you to organizations, to industries, to fields, to the next step in your career. That's what I'm doing for you. And the information that I'm providing is inside information about, again, the culture of the organization and the field and the industry. And the, you know, and the subfields too, of course. I'm also providing you with insight as to how you can make the steps that you want to make, or how you can build the strategic plan that you want to build to get you to where you want to go, or insight as to what might be an appropriate career path for you, given your interests, given your loves, or insight related to what might be things to watch out for. You know, what are some of the stumbling blocks or the challenges that come with this particular career path or come with this type of project. So as you're building your strategic plan, I, as your mentor, can not only help you with the strategy part of it, but I can also give you information and insight as to what tactics you employ to actually get to where you want to go. And the access that I'm giving you is not just to the people, but I want you to understand, I'm giving you access to cultures. I'm giving you access to organizations, to fields, to associations, and really helping you to understand the whole ecosystem of where you want to go, so that you can be best prepared and feel strong as you engage that community. So my role is to listen, to guide, and to foster. So I'm not necessarily directing you, and that's an important thing to know. I give you ideas, but I am going to listen to hear what your needs are, to hear what your goals are, to hear what your loves are. I'm going to guide you based on my own information and expertise and that of my own network. And then I'm going to foster your career goals. I'm going to foster you as a professional by giving you ideas as to what skills you might want to improve upon, or what opportunities you might want to pursue, and things of that nature. The listening is a very important part of it. So what else am I doing as a mentor? I'm providing you this guidance, this advice. Not only am I giving you knowledge, right, about how ecosystems operate and how to write a grant proposal, or how to, you know, do very specific tasks associated with the metrics of success for the career path you want to go into, but I'm also giving you inspiration. That's part of my role. My role as your mentor is I'm going to be your coach. I'm going to be your inspiration. I want to help you. I'm going to be your cheerleader, because I want you to help. I want to help you craft your career in the way that you want to. I want to help you craft your unicorn career. So if this is going to be the case, I am going to see what I can do to give you inspiration. And that inspiration could come in the form of stories. It could come in the form of ideas. It could come in the form of me introducing you to people in my networks. But this is very, very important. And the related to this is my role is I am going to value you, my protege, as a person, and this is the aim, develop a mutual trust and respect and maintain your confidentiality. And I'm telling you all these things about what the role of the mentor is because I want you to be aware of when you see people behaving in this very positive way towards you, you can get a sense that this person either has already in their mind identified themselves as a potential mentor to you. And the other side of the coin, and which we have to talk about, is the negative side. If you see people behaving in the opposite way, where they're not giving you respect, where they're not maintaining confidentiality, where they're clearly not valuing you, then no matter what their job title is, no matter how many degrees they have, or no matter how many worldwide accomplishments they have, this person would not be a good mentor for you. If they do not respect you, if they do not maintain your confidentiality, if they do not value you as a human being, it doesn't matter how many degrees or how many accomplishments they've had or how much money they bring in every year to their laboratory. This person is not a mentor for you. Do not go with somebody who does not value, trust you, or give you trust or respect you, or does not maintain your confidentiality. But going back to the positive side, because I always like to think on the sunny side, of course, another thing that a mentor does is I'm going to be your champion and I'm going to be your advocate. So just like I'm your own publicist, right, talking about how you're amazing to my network of contacts, to the room where you do not have access necessarily to, I'm going to champion you, and I'm going to be your advocate, even in formal and informal ways. So I'm going to, of course, write letters of recommendation for you, and I'm also going to say, you know what, I heard that there's this really wonderful fellowship. In fact, there's an amazing fellowship that you should pursue, a travel fellowship to go to Lindau for the interdisciplinary meeting in 2020. In 2020. I want you to consider applying for this. So I'm going to be your advocate and your champion. In fact, when you apply for it, I'll help you because I know about the Lindau community. And, you know, I mentioned earlier about the culture, right? That I'm teaching you about the culture, helping you understand the culture in which you're going into. And so I'm going to be also providing information about the quote unquote unwritten rules of that culture, of that ecosystem, industry, or organization, things that are features of the culture, which may not necessarily be discussed, you know, and that could be something as simple as, you know, if you're going to go to this type of conference, if you're going to the biophysics conference, you know, you want to get there early so that you can do X, or you want to make sure that you wear a suit to this particular event, or you want to make sure that you, if you're going to work for this company or interview with this company, that you mention Z. So these things may not necessarily be written down, but they're sort of, you know, talked about within the community. That's where my advice can potentially help you. And related to that, of course, is the other resources. I want to give you resources, actual physical resources that could help you achieve your goals. So these are the kinds of things that a mentor can do. And, you know, before we transition into what a protege does, Christoph, do we have any questions at this point?
Yes, we actually absolutely do. We have one great question from Ekaterina, and the question is, what more specifically are the values for a mentor in the mentor-protege relationship that you mentioned? And it actually goes into an interesting direction, values both as the benefits, maybe you could also maybe comment on how values can be shared values.
Absolutely. Thank you for that wonderful question. That's a great question. It actually is the next part of my talk. The next part of this webinar is I'm going to talk about in detail what value the protege provides the mentor. That's the question, if I'm understanding it right. Is that correct, Christoph?
That's right.
Okay, so if you can hold on to the person who asked that question, if you can hold on just a second, I will actually go into excruciating detail about why the mentor would even want to work with a protege and what the mentor is going to get from the protege and how we can, love the way you phrase that, how those values could be potentially mutual values. So hold on, I will get back to you, I promise. Christoph, do we have any other questions at this point?
Yeah, maybe one other question that's really interesting. You mentioned that in the mentor-protege relationship, you can also commiserate. Can you also give an example of how you can, both as a protege and a mentor, how you can discuss those, the frustrating elements of your work life, and how a mentor can help you with that, and also how, as a protege, you could approach frustrating, difficult topics in your career, in your profession, and how you appropriately discuss that with your mentor.
Yeah, so thank you for that wonderful question. That's a very important point, and I'm glad you brought that up. So the idea of commiserating and communicating and keeping an open line with your peers, whether they are peers that are mentoring others, or peers that are proteges of mentors, or both, because at any point in your career, you probably will be both a mentor and a protege. I am still a protege and I am a mentor at this point, by the way. The idea is we want to build networks of contacts of people who we can build these relationships with, these peer-to-peer relationships with as well, who would be able to be trustworthy and would hold in confidence what we talk about, and would be able to give us advice, so that if we do feel that we have a challenge, that if we're jammed up, or if I'm having trouble communicating with my mentor, she's just not understanding that I want to go and switch my career into cupcake baking. How do I communicate that? How do I let her know so that she doesn't think that I'm abandoning her in science, but that she understands that we can still be in a mentor-protege partnership, even if I'm in cupcakes and she's in biophysics. And so to have that network of contacts of people is very, very important. So what you can do is, early in your career, not only are you identifying potential mentors and maybe even potential proteges, but you're identifying potential peers who you can form a group with, even if it's an unwritten or an informal group, that you can form a group, a society with almost, that can serve as where you all can mutually help each other over the course of your careers. And let's say, it's like a group of friends, but they don't even have to be friends. They could be, let's say, 5 to 10 people. And some of them, by the way, you might meet at Lindau. I mean, that would be a perfect place to meet this group of this board of people who are all peers. You're all doing different things, but when you have a challenge, you can reach out to them and say, what do you think about this? The way I would approach that, by the way, is always to make sure that the group understands that what we say in the group stays in the group, that we are dedicated to complete confidentiality of the group members and their issues. And I would also, as an individual in that group, not necessarily name names. So I wouldn't necessarily say, Dr. X, who serves as my PI, I have a challenge with, how can I solve this? I might say, I have a challenge with a mentor. Here is the issue. How can I solve that? And so you can hide or shield some of the personalization information that could potentially identify that person, just for your own sake, but at the same time build into the group a sense of confidentiality. And you can even say, we're forming this group. We're going to check in on each other. We're going to have a private Facebook chat dedicated to it. Nobody else is allowed in unless we specifically discuss it, and everything that we discuss is completely confidential and will remain that way. And I think that if you formed a group like that, or even a couple of groups like that, that would potentially help to alleviate and solve any challenges that might come up with your mentors or your proteges as you move forward in your career. Does that answer the question, Christoph, or was there another piece of that?
No, it's a great question, a great answer to a really good question, I think. This was perfect. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. And it's something that we can think about a lot more. And I'm really, again, to the person who brought that up, I'm really glad you did, because we often think about these relationships. We think about them as with people who are farther ahead of us in the career path, right? That's the mentor. or behind us in the career path. Those are the protégés, but we don't think of the peers as providing a very valuable, potentially invaluable partnership. And these peers that you develop partnerships with, you can still have this relationship with to build a board of directors who can potentially help you and guide you and support you when you are down, when you are having challenges, even on a day-to-day with the minutia of your career path and of your field. I think these are very, very valuable resources to think about. So now I want to get back to that other question that was asked, and I really appreciate it because you just pushed me forward into this next section of the webinar. Why would a mentor help a protege? What value does a protege provide? And by the way, I wrote an article related to this called Networking with Dr. God, and you can find it online for free. It was in Science Magazine, Networking with Dr. God, in which I actually interviewed Bill Phillips, Christoph, will Bill Phillips be at the Lindau conference this year?
He absolutely will.
Yes!
We're really looking forward to having him back at Lindau. He was here in 2016, and he will also return this year.
That's fantastic. So I've met Bill a couple of times now, of course, the Nobel Prize winner and physicist, and he was actually the motivation for starting this article or launching this article, Networking with Dr. God, because when I met him at Lindau, he constantly, and I've actually met him at the 2012 and the 2016 physics meetings in Lindau. He was the one who told me, I asked him, why do you come back to Lindau like every year? What is it about Lindau that you are so attracted to? And he said he really, really loves to meet with the young scientists. He likes to meet with the early career professionals. He gets a lot of value out of being a mentor to you. So that actually started me thinking about what is the value that a protege can provide. And there's quite a lot of value that you, as an early career professional, can provide me as a super, super old senior citizen in my career that I actually, as a mentor, would quite value, would really appreciate. So first and foremost, you as a protege provide me ideas and inspiration. Remember, you're looking at problems from a very different perspective. You are fresh in the career space, you're fresh in the field, so you are looking at problems with a different way. You're taking a mountaintop view and a granular view. You're seeing things that I, having been in the field for 20 or more years, I might not necessarily see. I might be blind to them, but you, because you come in and you don't know everything about the field or the career path or the industry or the topic, you come in with this fresh attitude, this fresh perspective. You see things that I might not necessarily see. You can give me ideas and inspiration that would not necessarily come from people who are my own age. You were trained because you are so early in your career and because you're presumably younger than me, you have been trained and educated in tools and techniques and technologies that did not exist when I was a student. And the great example that I use is social media. Of course, now I'm pretty social media savvy, but I mean, I didn't grow up swiping left and swiping right. I didn't grow up with a cell phone in my hand. When I started at university in the 90s, I had to ask somebody, what is an email address? And then I had to actually go to 15 different departments at the University of Arizona campus to get an email address. That's how new that technology was. But now I see my friends' kids who are 2, 3 years old, they know how to actually access a cell phone. They know how to use the gram. They know how to use Snapchat or whatever. So they're able to actually give me, those early career professionals, you would be able to help me develop a social media platform and develop a social media campaign. You would help me to understand how to use social media to collect data. You might actually help me to understand what social media sites would be useful for me to recruit new professionals into my team. You would help me understand how to use certain other types of technologies. And I'm talking about really high-tech technologies that are in the field, right? Assuming that I'm, an accomplished, let's say, biophysicist, I keep using the biophysics community as an example. Assuming that I'm an accomplished biophysicist, yes, I know how to do technique X, Y, and Z, but I might not have used Z in the way you were trained in it, in which case you would be providing me a very specific value to be able to teach me that. And remember, the mentor-protege relationship is value in both directions. It's mutually beneficial. So you would be able to help me with that. In doing so, you would be enabling my success. You would be making a difference in what my goals are, in what I'm interested in doing. And that's very important. So you're going to be looking for ways to enhance my career. You're going to be looking for, fellowships that I could potentially apply for. You're going to be looking for awards that you could potentially nominate me for. The other thing also that you're providing me is you have your own networks. So not only am I giving you access to my networks, but you're giving me access to your networks. Now, let's say I'm your mentor. I'm not able to go to Lindau, but you are. You've met 800 or 799 other young scientists from around the world. It's, by the way, if you're not hearing me, what I would do is log out of the webinar and just log right back in. It might just be a glitch in your system. And we are recording this, as I mentioned to you. So I might not be able to go, as your mentor, I might not be able to go to Lindau, but you're interacting with 799 other young scientists from around the world. You're building this huge network that's going to last through time and space. And this is a network that you can give me access to. So if I'm looking for somebody to do nanofabrication, you've already met somebody who does nanofabrication at Lindau or at the Biophysics Conference or at Conference Z, and you'd be able to give me access to that network. And here's another funny, interesting thing, and this was something that was actually motivated by something that Bill Phillips told me, was that honestly, you are the future and the legacy of my work. As the mentor, you're the protege, I'm the mentor. At some point, I'm going to die. And so when I do, you are going to be the one that actually helps to take my work into the next level, into the next generation. And so I am very much invested in that value that you're going to be providing me. I want to nurture the relationship so that you can continue my legacy. It's kind of funny, but it actually is very true. So in addition, the actual tangible value that you can provide me is you can give me advice, because if I'm interested in using a technology that I'm not familiar with, you can help me understand it. You could give me and provide nominations and letters of reference specifically for me, to help me understand, to help me achieve my goals and advance in my career. You can give me inside information about, again, about ecosystems that you've been involved in, about conferences that you've attended that you think would be wise for me to attend, about opportunities that might be appropriate, and about cultures that I might not have had access to, cultures of organizations and fields. And you're also promoting me. And so you act as a publicist for me as well. So these are just some of the things that the protege can provide that are absolutely invaluable to me as your mentor. And so what your role can be and what your job can be as a protege in the mentor-protege partnership is to look for opportunities where you can provide this value. You know, Christoph, I feel like this is a great time for a poll. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we want to do, this time we also want to do poll questions besides your other questions, which we'll get to at a later point. We got one longer question that's really an interesting example that we'll discuss towards the end of the webinar. But first we want to basically poll your opinion, sort of your ideas about the mentor-protege relationship. So you can check out the little poll element in your GoToWebinar, and then right here we have the first poll question. So who do you think drives the mentor-protege partnership that we've discussed for the last few minutes? Is it mainly the mentor, maybe the protege, both? Is it clearly partnership, or are you still not quite sure who drives that partnership? Just click on one of the answers, and really interested to see what you think.
It's interesting to watch the responses coming in. People have some very interesting ideas, and we haven't had any unsures yet. So I guess I'm doing my job well. So we'll give you just a couple more moments to vote. And then we have about 83% people have voted so far. Why don't we see if we can get it up to 90%, and then let's close the poll and see what you guys said. Okay, all right, we're at 90%, so let's close the poll and see what we got. So what we got, very interestingly, was 73% said that both the mentor and the protege, 73% of you said both the mentor and the protege drive that relationship. 15% of you said that the protege is driving the relationship, and 12% said the mentor. Very interesting results, don't you think, Christoph?
It's really interesting, and it really shows how people already think of the mentor-protege relationship truly as a relationship where it's not one person talking down to the other, but I really like that a lot of people think that it truly is an exchange between the two people and that both have to drive that relationship for it to work.
Yes, and I would
It's really
agree.
interesting.
Yeah, it is very interesting. And I would certainly agree with the mindset of the people who voted for both, in that it is a relationship, right? It is a partnership. So there is value going back and forth from both people. And you're right, nobody's talking down to anybody, nobody's dumbing anything down. It's an equal partnership that is mutually respectful. However, I would like to respectfully disagree with the majority of the people who said that both people drive this relationship. My philosophy is that the relationship of the mentor-protege is actually driven by the protege. And the reason why is because the mentor is providing all of this interesting value, the insight, the guidance, the understanding of the language and the culture of the community, the access, the publicity, all those things so that you can achieve your goals. If you don't stay in touch with the mentor, if you don't ask the mentor questions, if you don't reach out to the mentor and engage them, and that's the important thing, the engagement, then the relationship has the potential to fall apart. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that, yes, there is an equality between the two of us, but the driver is going to be you. As the mentor, I'm not necessarily going to reach out to you all the time to see how you're doing, but you can reach out to me and set up appointments to talk with me, to share with me what you've been working on. I'm going to talk to you about how to do that in a moment. But you're driving that relationship, you're helping to plan it, that relationship, and you're serving as a resource partner and a continuous learner in the process of being in the process of the mentor-protege relationship. And of course, that goes back to the original idea of the protege being somebody that I, as the mentor, would want to help because you are a continuous learner. You want to improve on your skills and your abilities. This is very useful. So what you can do in your role as a protege to improve the relationship and to achieve your own career goals is to learn the tools, the tips, and the tactics of your trade, listen to my advice, and hear it. And I want to make it clear when I say hear my advice or heed my advice as a mentor, that because this is a relationship of mutual respect, if you disagree with my advice, my role as your mentor is to say, well, here's my suggestion, but I will support you. If you choose to do it a different way, I will support you. Let me give you an example of this, because sometimes a mentor, they may not realize why you're asking a particular question, or they may not realize the significance of the question that you're asking, or they may not realize the emotional aspects of the question that you're asking. Like maybe you want to change careers or change jobs or change industries or organizations, and they're giving you advice based on their own experience, but they're not understanding the entire system of you. So they give you advice, but it doesn't sound like advice that you necessarily want to follow. So you can listen to my advice as a mentor, but you don't necessarily have to follow it. So let me give you an example. Many years ago, I was invited, I was talking to somebody who was a peer of mine, and we had been talking for a number of years about a potential collaboration. And one day he emailed me and he said, all right, I have an idea for you for a collaboration. You've been working on X and I do X as well. Why don't we write a paper about it in a journal? And you know what, why don't we take your data and you write the draft, the first draft, and then I'll put my name on it as a co-author, and we will work on it together. Now, at first glance, this idea of writing this paper together sounded great. I had never written a scholarly paper in a journal before, so I was very excited about it. But the more I thought about this opportunity, the more it didn't sound right or seem right to me. My gut was telling me that this might not work out in the way that I wanted it to. So I went to my mentor, one of my mentors, who I am still in a mentor-protege relationship with 10 years later, or 15 years later, I think at this point. And I asked him his advice about this. Now, his perspective was, this is fine, Alaina. You should totally do this. You'll only get value out of this. You'll be a published author. You'll be in this journal. You'll have this experience. It'll lead to other things. This was his advice. But I remember sitting in his office, and he was nearby geographically. I remember sitting in his office thinking and feeling that this was not the right opportunity for me. So he was telling me to pursue it, and he was giving me real reasons why it would be useful for me. This was his advice. I was listening to his advice. But at the same time, my gut was saying this was not the right opportunity for me. So I ended up not pursuing it, and he was very respectful and told me, okay, I understand. And I told him why I didn't pursue it, and he said, I understand. I will continue, of course, helping you as you need it. And in the end, it was actually the right choice for me. So mentors will give you advice, and your role as a protege is to listen to that advice, but you don't necessarily have to take it if it doesn't seem like it's the right opportunity or the right moment in time and space for you to take it. And as your mentor, as I respect you, if you respect me and communicate why it is that you're choosing to take a different road than the one that I'm advising, we can still build that relationship going forward. You are allowed to disagree with me as long as we do it in a very respectful way. So going on and to continue what your role as a protege is your role is also to look for opportunities where you can practice mentoring others. So not only does this help you become a mentor yourself, but it helps you better understand how you can be a better protege. When you're mentoring others, you can help yourself be a better protege as while you're helping other proteges, of course. And, you know, I kind of touched on this before about making sure that your mentor is truly a mentor and not a zombie. So the creatures that are not respectful to you, the creatures who are not keeping your work in confidence. If you're curious to know about how to handle this scenario, I wrote an article for Physics Today magazine called Beware the Zombie, Haters, Jerks, and Pigs. I believe that's the title of the article. And it was all about the 4 different creatures that you may interact with in the course of your career. We want to make sure that your mentor is not a zombie. So you, as a protege, your role is to keep an eye out and keep your feelers up to make sure that they are truly supportive and respectful of you and not a zombie. And you want to stay in contact with them, right? So how do you stay in contact with a mentor, right? You have to identify the right channels and figure out what is appropriate for them. And see, the thing is that depending on what generation they're in and depending on where they are in the world and depending on what culture they're from, there might be different channels, right? So I know, like, in my travels across the world recently, that they're, like, for example, in many countries in Africa, WhatsApp is used a lot, like significantly, a lot. Whereas like in Japan, I didn't get the sense that WhatsApp was used as much. It's used a little bit, but not as certainly as much used as in South Africa, for example. But in other nations and other cultures and other scientific cultures and communities, and also depending on the age of the person who is your mentor, they might feel comfortable with you communicating with them via email, or they might actually enjoy a phone call, like you actually using the phone as a phone, or maybe it's carrier pigeon, or maybe that you tweet them, or maybe it's elegant imported stationery. But whatever it is, we need to make sure what the right communication channels are for the mentor and for the protege too. So what you can do is you can ask your mentor, how would they like to be communicated? How would they like to, if you want to set up an appointment with them, how should you initiate it? Do they prefer an email? Do they prefer a text? Do they prefer a WhatsApp? And so being just totally clear with your mentor and your protege and saying, what channels do you prefer? And what channels would you prefer me not to text you? So I just recently started a partnership with somebody, and I made sure at the beginning to ask him, is it okay if I text you? Of course, the younger generations, the millennials, you have no problem with texting somebody when you first meet them. But somebody who's my age, the idea of you texting me without us actually agreeing that you're going to text me could be considered to be an infiltration. It could be considered an interruption. So you have to make sure that you're mindful of those things. But the other question that I often get, so once I figure out what the right channels are for the mentors to communicate with the mentors, the other question is I often get is, how often should I communicate with my mentor? And you know what, Christoph, this feels like a poll question, don't you think?
It definitely feels like a poll question. So we're going to have another quick poll question that's basically about how often should you communicate with your mentor. And I'm really Excited to see what do you guys think? How often should you communicate? Multiple times a day, a few times a month, a few times a year, only when they reach out to you, or only on special occasions maybe? And it probably depends a little bit on what your exact relationship is. Probably also depends on what channel of communication you use. But it's a really interesting question. How often should you communicate with your mentor? And I see we're still collecting responses. There's one already far ahead, one option, but we have about 67%, 70% voted. So I have a couple of more seconds to see what the answer will be. I'm not sure myself. I think it depends on the kind of relationship.
I agree with you, Christoph. I think it does depend on the relationship. It also depends on like what you're talking about in the relationship at that moment in time, right? So let's say I'm a postdoc and I'm about to finish my postdoc, let's say in about 4 months. So the people that are my mentors, I might actually be reaching out to them more often than I might have had in the past. It really just depends. We've had about 90% voted. Should we show the results?
Definitely, let's go for it.
Okay. So check this out. So I'm really excited that 67% of you said that a few times a month. I like that you're thinking to be more proactive, and 33% of you said a few times a year. Interesting responses.
Yeah, definitely. I think maybe at the moment I would at an early stage I probably would have also gone with a few times a month just to establish that relationship, and then it can kind of feel out how things are going, and then maybe switch to a few times a year, or whenever the occasion arises that you want to check in with your mentor.
Exactly. I would agree with that. And so like the way I think about it is I want to have at least what I call one meaningful engagement with my mentor each year, with each of my mentors each year. So a meaningful engagement could be an actual phone call or Skype or a WhatsApp where we're actually talking. Like I don't want to just text or email or, send you messages. I want to actually, touch base with you, have a conversation, so I can learn as your protege. I can learn what you're working on, and I can share with you as your protege. I can share with you what I've been working on, and maybe get your advice about some certain ideas. So the meaningful engagement once a year is, if you are not in the process of applying for a job or moving careers or moving across the world, if you were engaged in an activity that was kinetic in nature, like applying for a position or changing careers, then staying in touch with them, I think more often would be very useful. What I would say is to set up for in your mind is to have that one meaningful engagement once a year, but ultimately, if you can check in on with them 4 times a year, once a quarter, just to keep them informed with a quick email, and I'm going to tell you what you put in the email in a few moments, just to keep them informed of what you're working on. I think that would be very, very helpful. And a couple of ways that you can actually stay in touch to have those meaningful engagements and just to touch base is if you know that they're coming to a conference that you're going to be attending, or they could be, you can reach out to them and say, hey, can we meet for coffee or lunch while we're at the conference together? Or if you know you're going to be in their city, or if you know they're coming to your city, you should let each other know. Let people know that you're going to be, let your mentor know you're going to be traveling, because you never know. She might be actually doing a residency in Japan while you are going to Riken to Japan, and then you and her could actually meet up in Tokyo. So, and you might even be able to volunteer to give a talk at her lab or at her research group. And similarly, there might be other ways that you can assist her. So check in at least once a quarter. And another great way to actually stay in touch with your mentor is to send holiday greetings. And it doesn't have to be a specific holiday. In fact, I very rarely say, happy insert name of holiday here. I usually say, I hope you're having a very happy holiday season, because it is the holiday season. And so just to be able to send that quick greeting is very useful. But when a mentor reaches out to you, respond to their queries and notes quickly, and you do not have to text them every day. You don't have to do that, especially if there's no kinetic activity that's engaged at the moment, like applying for a job. I will say this, that I'm very happy to say that a strong partnership with your mentor and your protege, between the mentor and protege, can stand the test of time, changes in geography, and even jobs and industry. So even if you switch to cupcake baking, even if you switch to race car driving, even if you switch from biophysics to nanofabrication, there is still the connection there. You can still maintain that relationship over time. So now a lot of people ask me, but what do I say in the emails as I'm checking in once a quarter, or as I'm trying to build this relationship with the mentor? How do I actually create that value? How do I communicate that value? How do I stay connected? And you do want to think as much as you can about providing value to your mentor. So there's 4 things that you can put in the follow-up emails and in the emails to your mentor, so that it's not just an email that says, hey, Christoph, what up, dude? You know, happy face emoji, love, Alaina. You know, you don't have to do that. We can do something actually more strategic and more valuable. So the first thing you can put in the email is new information about yourself. So if I'm the mentor and you're the protege, you can email me and say, you know, oh, Alaina, dear Alaina, it was so nice talking to you at Lindau, you know, and now maybe it's September, right? And so, or maybe August, and, you know, it's so nice. It was so nice talking to you, meeting you at Lindau. I really enjoyed speaking with you and learning about your career. I wanted to let you know, since we last spoke, I actually have already applied for the interdisciplinary program for Lindau 2020. Or as a result of the conversation that we had, I was able to get a Nobel Prize. I don't know if you knew that I got the Nobel Prize, Alaina, so I just wanted to let you know, and I hope you'll join me in Stockholm. So give me new information about yourself, a new paper, a new poster, a new milestone, maybe a new skill that you're learning, or maybe something new, anything new. And it's not inappropriate self-promotion. I want to make that clear. Because I'm your mentor, you're sharing insight and you're sharing your accomplishments. That is totally appropriate. So if you won the Nobel Prize since the last time I spoke with you, or got a fellowship, or learned a skill, or just learned something new about the field, this is new information about you. And this is useful for me to have, because if I'm going to champion you, I have to know what's new about you. I have to know that you got the Nobel Prize. I have to know that you know the skill. I have to know that you shifted gears and you're now looking more towards nanofabrication. So give me new information about yourself. That's number 1. Number 2, new information about me. Offer me congratulations. Oh, Alaina, since we last spoke, I saw you won the Nobel Prize. I think that's wonderful. Congratulations. I saw you published a paper. I saw you're speaking at this conference. I saw you are on this committee. Show me that you're invested in the relationship, that you've done some research, and that you've kept apprised of what I've worked on, so that you can share with me new information about myself. That shows me that you are thinking long-term and mutually beneficial. Number 3, give me information that will help me. So something of value. So, you know, Alaina, when we spoke, we talked about nanofabrication, particularly in medical devices. And here is an interesting article on that subject. Or here is an interesting person who I'd like to introduce you to who is doing this type of area. Or here's a conference that I found that I think would be useful for you to attend or present at, or at least know about. So give me something that moves my career forward. And then finally, the 4th thing that you can put in the email is an action item, something that actually convinces me you're asking me a question, usually a yes or no question. It's a 10 to 30 seconds of brain power is what should be required of me to respond. So, and you can mix and match all of these. So you can say, you know, since we last spoke, I won the Nobel Prize, and I know you've won the Nobel Prize recently as well. So congratulations on that. I wanted to ask you, you know, when I meet the King of Sweden, what type of clothes should I wear? So a quick yes or no question that demonstrates that you are interested in moving your career forward, and me. So I like to put a number of these in the emails, but this is the formula that you can use. And some notes on the mentor-protégé partnership. We are thinking long-term. We are thinking into the next geologic era. And you know what? And Christoph, you kind of touched on this a little bit, and I think it's important that you did that, because mentor-protégés and partnerships can emerge and wax and wane very organically. So they can be that at certain times in the partnership we are talking more and more frequently, and with longer conversations and longer emails. And then there might be a time where we don't talk for months, or maybe even a year. But if you make it a point to actually touch base with me at least once a year, at least you will stay connected. And I do like to keep the relationship professional. So they are friendly. They could potentially be a friend, but they are not your friend. They are not your, that you shouldn't view them as somebody that you would necessarily be a buddy-buddy with. It is a professional relationship, not one that's a little bit more informal. Even with an informal mentor-protege relationship, you are still interacting with them from a professional stance, not from a friendly stance in a certain respect. But you want to strive for diversity. So my mentors are people who are in science and not in science, who are in Arizona and definitely not in Arizona, who are in academia and non-academia. They are worldwide. They're in many different fields, because that diversity gives you inspiration, innovation, and ideas to solve problems in new ways. Some final notes on the mentor-protege relationship. Solve those conflicts soon as possible. If there is a conflict, make sure you address it with the mentor so that you can solve them. And recognize that not everybody will want to be your mentor, and not everybody will want to continue being your mentor. And you, as the protege, won't want every person that you meet to be your mentor either, and that's okay. If a relationship sort of fizzles out at some point, that's okay. You could try to revive it in the future, but if that person just is not interested anymore, then they would probably give you some clues as to that's the case. They might be less inclined to respond to your emails or to your texts. And so if that's the case, we will adjust, we can manage. That's okay. So in conclusion, and I love this picture of Danny Schechman, who often comes, and I'm hoping he's going to be at 2019. Christoph, will he be there this year?
He most likely will. He's really a good friend of the Lindau meetings. Yeah.
He absolutely is. So you, for those of you who are coming to Lindau 2019, I hope you will get a chance to meet Danny Schechman, 2011 Nobel Laureate in chemistry, found quasicrystals. So this, in conclusion, the mentor-protege partnerships are truly invaluable in both directions. The mentors, they really want to help the shiny, bright stars, the winners, the people who are ambitious and excited about science and excited about the industry and the field and want to achieve success, even if they haven't gotten the Nobel Prize yet, even if they haven't gotten a paper published yet. They want to help people who have their eye on that prize, metaphorically and literally. So it's okay to make mistakes. You will make mistakes in that partnership, but if there are conflicts, you want to solve them as quickly as possible and leverage that partnership so that you can help both yourself and your protege and your potential mentor as well. Look to provide value, look to provide insight, information, guidance to help that relationship and to help the other party. Utilize their preferred communication methods, and as I said, resolve conflicts quickly and learn from them so that you can then pay it forward, pay it back by becoming a great mentor yourself. I really think that the mentor-protege partnership is a very undersold or undervalued in a certain respect aspect of you being a successful professional. So to get that success, to achieve that success, to be in a career where you find joy and intellectual stimulation, the mentor-protege partnerships, notice I used S there, will be absolutely a major asset. So with that, I want to thank you so much, and I'd like to thank Christoph. And Christoph, did you have a few more things that you wanted to share about the Lindau Alumni Network?
Oh, absolutely. We have one more question coming up from Olga. She really gave us a great example that we can discuss, and where we can maybe, Alaina, you can have a bit of more advice. But just to wrap things up, really, our Lindau Alumni Network is really supposed to be a network, and a lot of things that Alaina mentioned for the mentorship relationship really can also be an element of our alumni relationship. So share with us your news. You can share it on the Lindau Alumni Network. We're also always glad to retweet, reshare your good news, calls for papers, anything you're interested. Also, we really want this to be a discussion. So if you have ideas of things that you want to have in our alumni network, maybe formats that we want to offer or the special features, really just contact me. We're really interested. We want to build this network interrelationship with you, and also reach out to other alumni that may not be active in the network yet. And let's keep our relationship going, keep the Lindau spirit, and also bring that little bit of Lindau spirit to other people at the institution that might still be young enough to attend the Lindau meeting or have recently won a Nobel Prize, as Alaina mentioned.
Yes. So I would love to answer your question. So what do you want to know? How can I help you?
All right, Olga has a question. Well, basically an example of a difficult mentor-mentee relationship. She gives the example of a friend of hers who has a problem basically with a relationship to a formal mentor, basically the PhD advisor of a friend. And friend finished the PhD, published in really good journals, but because the PhD and also the relationship to her PI was so difficult and at times conflicting, she's hesitant to apply to postdoc positions. And doing that in between period between PhD and the postdoc, Olga's friend tried reaching out to another mentor, someone at the same institute, but that's where the problem where you can maybe give some advice, Alaina, comes in. The other mentor was also very hesitant. The other potential mentor was hesitant to start a mentor-protégé relationship because while the person knew that the relationship is conflicting, but the potential mentor didn't really want to be in direct conflict to the PhD advisor, PI, because those two potential mentors also collaborate a lot scientifically. So Alaina, do you have maybe a bit of advice what the protégé can do in such a difficult situation?
Yes, and this is first of all, thank you for asking that question. And I want to tip my hat to you and your friend for dealing with this challenge. It's absolutely a challenge that many people face, and it's a very hard challenge. So the fact that you're here with us today and thinking about this to how you can improve in the future is important. It's important for you to recognize for yourself. So I applaud your courage in this challenging ecosystem. So the issue with a PI that does not work out is a question that I get a lot from a lot of different webinars, whether we're talking about networking or career development, or if I'm giving a webinar on conflict resolution, there is always a question about dealing with a supervisor who is not somebody who you can necessarily work with. And it could be that they are still a human being, and it just you did not have the right chemistry and it just didn't work out for a variety of reasons. Or it could be on the other end of the spectrum where they are a zombie and they're trying to ruin the person's career or take credit or harass them and just being a really evil creature. So in all cases, what we want to do is, I'm going to give you two ideas. So one idea, of course, is this is where having a diversified board of directors of mentors from different institutions across the world, and perhaps different institutions in different fields, would be very helpful to you, so that at least if you ended up with a zombie who was your PI, you would have a buffer, you would have a cushion of people that could potentially drown out the sounds of the zombie in letters of recommendation and in helping you move forward into the path that you want, whether it's in that same institution or at another. But they could potentially open doors and share verbally and via written documents that you are a talent, even if the zombie is screaming that you're not. So that's one thing, is to build that diversified board of directors. But of course, we don't have that time machine. So what do we do right now? So the idea is, if this other person is not necessarily going to help you, then is there anybody else in the department? Is there anybody else in a department that's related to yours that you could potentially reach out to? Maybe it's not going to be possible for you to finish the degree or the postdoc in Department X, but maybe Department Y has similarities, and there could be an interesting opportunity for you to do a new postdoc in Department Y. And so it might be that you have to actually move to that second department. Unfortunately, zombies exist in all industries and in all fields, and we just have to be very aware of of their existence and note what they can do. What you can do for your friend, because you asked what should the non-protege do in this situation, how you can help your friend, is certainly to be a supporter, right? To listen to this person, to validate what they're saying. If they say that they feel, note I use the word feel. If they say that they feel that something is wrong here, that this is not feeling right, that this is not a good situation, then this is the case where you can say, I understand, I empathize, I appreciate what you're saying, I believe you. And that's a very important part of being a friend, of course. And quite honestly, being a mentor as well, that's an important part. If I'm your mentor and you tell me that something doesn't feel right, my job is to say, I validate that. I believe you. I may not have all the data about the scenario, but you do because you're in it. So I know we were talking about PhD supervisors versus postdoc supervisors, but there's connections between the both. So that's why I mentioned that. So now with the new PhD, I think your friend should not be hesitant to apply for the postdoc positions, even though you won't get that recommendation letter from the supervisor. I would reach out to other professors, other scholars who know your work and ask them to write. And if at some point somebody asks you why your PhD advisor or your original PhD supervisor was not listed as a letter of reference or provided a letter of reference, then you can simply say that this person was, we did not, you can say there's a couple of things that you can say if you're comfortable with it. You can say that this person was incredibly busy and my focus changed from X to Y, so I wanted to give you letters of recommendation from people who could truly understand the value that I would be able to provide you in this postdoc, in this job, in this organization, and so that's why they're there. And then if you really are pushed, you could always say, yes, with this with my first PhD advisor, we did not, he or she was not somebody that I have to think out loud about this, but I could actually, if you email me, I'd be happy to actually write out a line for you about how to actually think about this. But I think a way that you can handle it is to say something like, my interests related to Y, and my PhD supervisor was more interested in X, and so I started pursuing opportunities for collaborations and projects and research contributions outside this lab so that I could move in this new direction. So in other words, the way you'd say it is from a positive perspective, as opposed to this person was a zombie and trying to destroy my life, because you never really want to, you never want to badmouth somebody, even if they're bad-mouthing you. So I hope that's helpful. That's a great question. I appreciate the depth of that question for you and for your friend. Do we have any other questions?
No, it was basically a good final question to sum up a lot of the things you said about the really interesting and intricate relationship between a mentor and protege. And I also want to stress that we will, for once, record this webinar, so you can always go back to it. I will also post links to the resources and articles Alaina mentioned. I will post them in the Lindau Alumni Network first. And Alaina, maybe really, as you just mentioned, also other people, excuse me, who have further questions can email you. And also, if you have questions or things that you would like to share, you can. Everyone can really just reach out to us on social media, by email. So thank you, Alaina, for this really insightful webinar. I learned something. I know how I can reach out better to mentors, and I hope our other participants also really took something away from this really good webinar. So thank you, Alaina.
Thank you so much, and it was my pleasure and privilege and honor, as always, to collaborate with you and the team at Lindau. And I want to wish everybody great success in their many, many exciting career paths ahead.
All right, thank you, Alaina. Thank you, everyone, for attending this webinar live. It's really, watching them live is really the best way to get questions in. But as I said, it will also be, the recording will go out by email first to you, live listeners, and then I will also post a link to it on the Alumni Network, and we can continue the conversation there. So
thank you,
Alaina.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and goodbye from Lindau.